Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic Roundtable Show. It's episode 517. We've got a small panel, but a powerful panel. We've got a guest as well. It should be a great show. I've rustled up, I think, some interesting stories. I'm sure it's going to be a lively debate. I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves. I'm going to let our guest introduce himself, and that's John Whitford. John, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers?
I would love to. Thank you for having me, Jonathan, and all the panelists. I'm looking forward to a fun, lively discussion today. So my name is John Whitford. I'm a digital marketer. So my wife and I, we left our jobs over the last 5 years, and we've turned to blogging, digital marketing, affiliate marketing, and just really enjoying our lives by being able to help others. Right now, our primary business helps moms start their own WordPress websites and teaches them how to create income through affiliate marketing, through selling their own digital products, and empowering them to create an income for themselves and their family. And it's been a fantastic road, and I'm just loving it. So I do my own YouTube content and things like that, but ultimately I just like to help people achieve their goals online.
And John's doing a great job on his YouTube channel. That's how he got on my radar. I started watching some of his videos, and I was really impressed about the information quality and just the way that he's presents himself. So I thought we'd invite him on the show as well. So I've got my friend Sally.
Hope you don't regret that.
We'll find out.
He looks a bit nervous anyway. Sally, would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers?
Yes, my name is Sally Getch, and as you can see from my background, I am out in the Sacramento River Delta in Oakley, California. I'm also the organizer of the East Bay WordPress meetup. We're having 2 meetups this month.
Wow.
And well, we sort of slid past July, and I built custom themes for nonprofits and businesses.
That's great. And I've got my friend John Locke. John, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
John Locke, and I do SEO for manufacturing, industrial, and contractors.
That's great. So on to our first story. Upcoming in WordPress 5.5, features and changes theme users should know about. So it's basically that WordPress is going to be upgraded. So what did you think of this story, John?
Well, I kind of just glanced through it, and I'm excited to see the continued improvements of the Gutenberg platform. You know, it's one that I've talked a lot about, and I've taught people how to use Gutenberg, but ultimately I still tend to follow into the page builder camp, the Elementors, the Thrive Architects, things like that. But I know there's a day when Gutenberg will be able to be a full-fledged replacement for any of the other page builders out there for designing, you know, custom content. So I think it's exciting. I don't know if it's fully there yet, but every update with WordPress is getting a little bit closer.
There'll be a day when we're free at last. So sorry, I couldn't resist it. Sally, what did you think of this article on the Tavern?
I think probably the best line is, "It is no secret I am downright giddy about the prospect of theme designers being loosed upon the world, allowing their talents to shine via block patterns." I'm trying to picture Justin Tadlock giddy. And
it doesn't exactly come straight to your mind, does it?
No, it really doesn't. However, you know, I think block patterns are pretty exciting too. And I know there's a lot of, there's already, you know, been some movement, like before block patterns were implemented, various theme and plugin designers were basically trying to, you know, create a way to make them, and are probably going to have to retool. But that's like the story of our lives with Gutenberg, is, you know, rearranging things and doing things a new way, as it says with the, you know, the custom logo link and some of the other things. You know, I'm looking forward to those. There will be some adaptations. You know, it slides the auto updates in here, which have been a point of some contention. So, you know, it's like, well, more studying. It doesn't, I mean, I'm not sure that the custom logo link issue will be, you know, will be a particularly serious problem. What they're changing is the fact that they don't want it to be a clickable link when you're already on the homepage, because it points to the homepage. And that seems pretty logical to me. It's apparently an accessibility thing, but then that means that they're suggesting that instead of targeting like site title A, that you target the dot custom logo link class, and that seems like a pretty minor fix to making a theme.
There we go. What do you reckon, John?
This is actually the biggest update to WordPress since we moved to the Gutenberg editor. And there's other things that are like dropping in this update that are worth mentioning. For one, there's going to be a native XML sitemap. And people who are used to using Yoast or even a separate plugin to generate an XML sitemap, WordPress is going to have that natively in 5.5. The other thing, there's going to be auto updates for themes and plugins. So auto updates are going to be enabled in this. That's pretty big. In addition to all the other things that are going on with the block editors, such as background block colors and stuff like that, there's lazy loading for images. So that's going to be big. And then the other thing is you can upload or you can upload a plugin. You don't have to delete a premium plugin to upload a plugin. You can upload via
yes, I saw that where if you've got to if there aren't any automatic there's no automatic update path, you don't have to first delete the existing folder before you can upload it as a zip file.
Yeah, there's been plugins in the past, for example, like the Premium Yoast, and then this is like a while back, but like Social Warfare, like if you were using the free plugin and then you had the premium plugin, you had to go through this process to update all your info into that. But this rectifies that situation.
Oops, it's going a little bit.
Was that John or me?
Did I freeze?
Yes.
Well, yeah. See if he comes. Oh, you're just breaking up there a little bit, John. He's in a very beautiful garden, actually. Let's go on to the next story. But before that, I want to mention one of my great sponsors, and that's Kinster Hosting. And Kinster, they've been sponsoring the show for over 3 years now, and their support is much appreciated. And I've been hosting the WP-Tonic website with them for a couple of years, and it's just fantastic. Really speedy hosting at a reasonable price. Plus, you get all the technology that you would be looking for. Also, they provide one-click backup. Basically, all that you expect from a modern WordPress hosting environment, and also great support and really helpful support. So if that sounds interesting for you or your clients, and it should, I suggest you go over to Kinster, have a look at their plans, buy one for yourself or for your clients, and also tell them that you heard about them on the WP-Tonic show. So on to story 2. And it's been an ongoing theme of this year and the second half of last year. Our beloved tech leadership were hauled in front of the Congress and kind of given a good ticking off on their antitrust behavior. So what did you think of this one, John?
So I didn't get a chance to watch this video yet. It's on my to-do list, but here we are, and it's 2 days late, and I haven't gotten to it yet. But if it's anything similar to what happened with Facebook earlier on, I am a bit more of a proponent personally on let innovation thrive, let innovation be there, and especially in the technology world, disruption is designed to happen. And it's, the natural order of things is to allow people to, succeed and then fail, be disrupted, and we all get better from that. The idea that, technology has some social responsibilities or other responsibilities outside of being a for-profit entity, on principle, I'm against it, but there may be some details in the story I haven't read through yet myself.
There we go. What the other John? I'm going to say John Locke or John Locke. What do you reckon?
So, we really need senators and Congress people that aren't 70 years old and actually understand how the internet works. Because these guys like Zuckerberg and the CEO of Google and all these people, they're like running circles around them as far as like when it comes to answering questions directly. I mean, they're basically like playing these guys. You know, they ask them, you know, something about an antitrust or something like that, and it's like, oh, I don't recall, or you know, it's what it
Well,
seemed like.
yes,
From the
it's
transcript.
kind of interesting the degree to which they are or are not smooth about those sort of responses. I mean, you know, I read an article kind of like, you know, predicting what everybody would say, and you know, and then it amounted to, you know, from Facebook, but TikTok, and from, you know, from Amazon, but jobs. And you know, it didn't come out quite that way from what I've read about the hearing, and these senators seemed, you know, a little bit more with it than
Yeah, it seemed a little bit. I think
than some of them. But yeah, there was a lot of weaseling that the CEOs were doing.
Didn't they ask Zuckerberg like why some tweet was deleted?
Oh, they asked it. Yeah, they asked why somebody got blocked, and Zuckerberg's like, that was on Twitter.
I didn't manage to buy them out. I was tempted. Like,
I think
it's
Twitter
like a
might
fish
be
getting away from a shark. It moved too quick for me.
I think Twitter is probably the one place Facebook never wanted to
No,
acquire.
I'm only. It's just, it was like a vision, you know. But so John, you know, do you know a guy called Dr. Scott Galloway? John, he's on YouTube a lot.
Which John?
I'm going to call you John Locke, and I call a guest John. So,
Yes.
do you know Dr. Scott Galloway?
No, I don't. Might have seen some of his content, but I don't know him by name.
No, he's big on YouTube, and he teaches at a prestigious American business school, and he's been very vocal about breaking up these companies because when a company gets to a certain size, it becomes so dominant that it hinders the normal competitive environment that you need for capitalism to really work. Are you not? Have you got no concerns about the actual? It's not exactly what these companies do, but it's more to do on their size and how big they've become.
That's a great question. I'm not a macroeconomic economist or anything. Like I have my own perspectives, but I don't spend too much time really dwelling on it. I think for the perspective of if my business, you know, becomes more and more successful, at what point do I not want to be more successful? Like you have to think about the incentive of the business itself. Like why are they working hard? Why are they taking these risks? You don't grow without taking risk. And the idea that, okay, too many of your risks have worked, now I'm going to break up your company. It just doesn't seem like it inspires the American entrepreneur to pursue excellence. Or it's like, okay, you can be this good, but you can't get better because then the government's going to take away everything you worked for. I don't know exactly how it all works, but that's at least I can see some motivation.
The illustrations in the Galloway article, the charts and things are interesting in terms of, you know, talking about the fact that the next biggest competitor to Amazon is Walmart. And you know, it's like, all right, what have we come to if we're starting to think of Walmart as the you know, as the good guys or the you know, the underdog. But I think the idea of antitrust generally is like, well, you disrupted a market, and we want there to still be an opening for other people to have that type of success. You know, there's a lot of questions about tech that don't directly tie into antitrust issues, but tie more into the operations that they have, and the fact that they are so pervasive, and that, you know.
Well, I think that's been covered by that term, surveillance capitalism.
Yes, there's that part.
I think the founders of Basecamp, when I forgot his name, is it Stephen or David? One of the founders of Basecamp had that interview with Matt Maroweg about 6 or 8 months ago. This, that came up in the conversation because Matt wants WordPress to totally dominate WordPress websites, have 80% of the market. And I think David from Basecamp pointed out to him that, it would become a part of what he classifies as surveillance capitalism. That model that you sell you're observing them where they go and you sell that information, which is fundamentally what the major model of Facebook is. So I think we're repeating ourselves, but the problem is, the listeners and viewers, this is really, I like to mix it up, WordPress, with other tech news stories, and be quite truthful. This ongoing saga has dominated the non-WordPress stories consistently for the past year. It just keeps coming up and up and up, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. So maybe I will lose interest at some stage. So
maybe that's what they're hoping, that we'll all just get so tired of talking about it that we that we don't care. And there was another piece I read about how Congress doesn't get technology, and that's by design, and not the design of Congress, but the design of technology. That none of us are really supposed to understand how it works, and some of that is just normal business practice. If you don't want to, Google is not going to publish its algorithm, and Facebook isn't either. But that it's meant to be tricking us into ongoing continuous what's the term people use these days? Doom scrolling.
There we go. It's all a delusion. All right, on to the next story. Bing launches URL submission plugin for WordPress. What did you think of this one, John Locke?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing, because now Bing's not the biggest player in the market. I mean, it's 7% market share of the search engines in the US and 3% worldwide. But hey, I've gotten clients from Bing. I'll take them. Submitting URLs to search engines and getting like all your pages and new pages like indexed is definitely an issue. And if the larger that your site is, if you're getting into thousands of pages, it becomes like a big issue. And people want to have that most current version of the page in the index. So this is cool because you can connect directly to it and just submit your URL directly. For contrast, if you're in Google Search Console and you're submitting a URL, it'll basically crawl it, and then you say, do we have this in the index or not? And then if it's not, you can have it, go get it, and sometimes it takes a little while. I've noticed this
plus they make it more obscure to do every time.
Yeah, I've noticed that in the new Search Console.
Has anybody ever seen a Google product get easier to use?
No, that's not what. Well, John might have a different opinion.
That's why we have Kit plugin.
That's why we have guests on the show, John, to challenge our.
What I like about this story is I kind of feel it ties nicely from the previous story about Google being too big and things like that. Where Bing, I think this is a great innovation for how Bing can yes, they have a small market share right now, but if they can get their information more quickly searched and indexed and findable by the general population, it could over time start to not disrupt. It's not going to disrupt Google with this one feature, but it's going to help them be a bit more competitive, which I think is what the natural order of things should be. But I think that Google's they're getting okay. The Site Kit plugin for WordPress, I think that did a lot to help WordPress users get Google a bit more accessible, where you can click a few buttons and get analytics and console installed. But I do think that the concept of site mapping and getting your site crawled and all of that, it is for the casual user, it's really hard to comprehend. So I like what Bing is doing here to make that a little bit easier and accessible.
So let's get to the crux of it, John Locke. I'm sorry, called you your surname as well. Is it worth putting it on? Because I've been on a bit of a blitz on my own site and my client site about removing plugins. I've really been on a binge over the past month, me and my team, about hunting down and removing these plugins. But, do you think it's worth?
And have you noticed dramatic performance improvements?
I've just said, we've been flooded over the months with updates. The amount of updates that have been coming through. We looked at our statistics.
Isn't that why people hire folks like WP-Tonic?
That's exactly.
Stay on top of that.
But there's a balance, Sally. There's a balance, my dear.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a balance. They don't. If we can assist our clients making their websites a little bit quicker and more secure. We must do it, Sally.
Well, it's true, and I hate clutter on websites. But the issue with plugins is generally much less how many of them there are than how well they're written.
Was it our fellow panel member Vito that came across the site the other day with 1,000 plugins? Is
that might be a little excessive? Yes,
that's a little bit excessive, isn't it? Obviously, they're not having their site maintained by WP-Tonic, are they?
Oh, no,
well, maybe they are by some of the feedback I've been getting.
It was 1,000 plugins, and they were all bundled into one ThemeForest theme.
No, it was Jetpack actually. I'm sorry. Now let's get back to the question, John Locke. Is it worth putting on and doing it? Do you think it's
worth you can set up a Bing Webmaster Tools account and you can submit an XML sitemap just like you're submitting an XML sitemap to Google. I don't know what their crawl schedule is because I'm going to be honest. I don't focus a whole lot on Bing. I just set it up and just kind of check on it once in a while.
I think the same could be said about Microsoft. I think they do the same.
Right, yeah, I mean, maybe if you want to install it. I mean, to me, like the bigger thing with SEO is a focus on getting the content right on your page and then getting the right links to your page. Do those two things, you'll be in much better shape.
Yeah, we're going to go for our break, folks, and we'll be back with some more stories in a few moments. The panel's been behaving themselves. We've got the intellect of our guest, John. He's a handsome beast, and he seems to be coping.
That's a first.
You'll adjust to Jonathan's personality.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just
the second time chatting with him. I'm still calibrating a little bit here.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very English, especially what the round tables show. But before we go into our stories, I've got to mention another great sponsor. That's WP Fusion. Look, if you've got a WordPress website and you're using an external CRM like ActiveCampaign, ClickFunnels, there's a lot of them out there. And marketing automation, as John, our guest, knows, he does some fantastic YouTube lessons on automation, is becoming more and more important. Now, to enable that communication and get all the benefits from your CRM, you need WP Fusion. It's an amazing product from an amazing developer, one of the most talented developers I know, Jake, and his team have really built something special. So if you're looking to really integrate your WordPress website, like I say, with your CRM, go over to WP Fusion, look at their lessons and their support documentations. It'll give you a much better idea of how amazing this product is. Go and buy it and tell them that you heard about them on the WP-Tonic show. So on to the next story, if I can find it. Got a bit taken away with my WP Fusion advert. So it's Shopify trade-offs, what to consider before selecting your next e-commerce platform. So what did you think of this one, John?
Well, Shopify is one of those platforms where you see a lot of people recommend it, but you also have to think about why they're recommending it. I do think Shopify is a very simple platform. What other people may not realize is they also really pay out for marketing. So they have a very nice affiliate program, which as an affiliate marketer myself, I always have to look at what is true in the recommendations that are being put out there, what is authentic, and what is being incentivized by the company. And I do know that Shopify is one of those. There's a few on the short list where you really have to think about the incentive behind the recommendation. So I think that's really where Shopify has really started to grow quite aggressively. However, it's not one that I really recommend. I do recommend WooCommerce over Shopify for most people. But then there's always the one-off client that no matter what you try to do to get them to not break their website, they'll still find a way to break it. And so I think that WooCommerce is one where if you get the keys to the castle, it may not be a good outcome for certain people if they want to be a bit more hands-on.
You're a dark horse, actually. Your answers, I was surprised at that answer, actually. And some of your other replies in the first half of the show. What do you really like about WooCommerce compared to Shopify then, John?
What do I like about WooCommerce compared to Shopify? From my perspective, I like knowing that the platform can do whatever I want it to do with the right, intent, the right resources, and the right research. And I, especially looking at the applications for Shopify, in the article here, it says they have 4,541 apps. That's a good number of apps, but I believe when it comes to WooCommerce, it's a tiny fraction of what capabilities there are on the WordPress side. So I like to know that the platform has the capabilities of doing what I need it to do. And also on a more personal side, I launched a WooCommerce store for my daughter, my 6-year-old daughter, to make a little bit of money on the side during this social distancing and teaching her about business while we're homeschooling her.
Yeah, I read your email that you sent to me about that.
I have to say, that's pretty awesome.
I love the email, actually. You did a fantastic job there.
I appreciate it. But I mean, I learned so many lessons there. And because WooCommerce, it has the ability to get started essentially for free. You get a web hosting account, and then you can start selling things. I think that depending on where you're at in the spectrum going into e-commerce, being able to get started at a low budget is extremely valuable. But then also it can grow and shape and shift and evolve as much as your needs grow and your budget grows. So I think that WooCommerce is a nice and accessible platform.
Now, I'm just going to have to ask you this. I can see where you're coming from, but when it comes to learning management systems, I forgot the one that you've been promoting quite a bit. It's not Kajabi, it's the other one.
Yeah, I think Kartra. And
now,
so again, I think
you've been really pushing that quite a lot, but can't you apply your logic to, you should really utilize a WordPress learning management system? No.
Well, certainly.
Not that we'd be biased about that or anything.
No, not I'm biased, John.
He's trying to get me in a corner here.
Yeah, I'm pushing you a little bit.
And that's fine. And so on my channel, as I talk about different platforms, I do try to have a healthy balance between WordPress-based solutions and non-WordPress-based solutions. And I believe firmly that different personalities, different psychographics there's a different solution for different people. And I just want people to be aware that there are alternatives out there. I think WordPress is a powerful solution, but when it comes to linking together a bunch of different systems, for example, marketing automation, email marketing, learning management systems, lead generation, all like the core pillars of creating an automatic and scalable business. I have found personally that WordPress can be not always the right solution. For that, when it comes into you're adding on all these different commerce platforms, which then decrease the page performance, decrease the page speed, or increase page load times. There are some trade-offs where when it comes to a marketing funnel specifically, I believe that being able to simplify and focus on the core marketing message and not so much in the technology and making sure integrations are always working correctly, that's where I really can see a use for the software as a service platforms that are off of WordPress hosted solution.
Right. So that's a very logical and totally understandable answer, which you rarely get from me, listeners and viewers. Which I
think he thinks it's the wrong answer, but at least it's logical.
It's yes. I mean, the thing is that every case is different.
Oh, I'm trying to build something that solves that problem, John, which hopefully
You know, so Shopify, I think, is a great place for somebody to say, I want to see if this e-commerce thing works. You can set something up. There's not a huge like initial outlay, because very often if you want to do, you know, X and Y and Z with WooCommerce, you're going to have to fork out for a bunch of plugins. And if you don't know, and you know, and then you're probably going to have to pay somebody to set it up for you if you're, you know, if you're the typical person who wants to try a home business.
Can I slightly interrupt, Sally? It's really interesting you say that, but I've got to. Time really flies, and I just realised I'm talking about an experience that's almost 5 years ago. So in some way, it's irrelevant. But when you were saying that, I was involved in a couple. One was medium, and one was a large Shopify project, and we had to extensively use the third-party add-on system of Shopify, and then we had to hire a very experienced JavaScript developer to help us. And I remember on the medium one, it became just as a big of a kind of semi-nightmare as WooCommerce, actually, Sally.
Well, I'm sure it can if you try to do anything complex, because my one experience with Shopify, which like I forget how many years ago it was now, long enough that probably their entire tech stack has changed. But the client wanted to do a sort of membership-based shopping experience where members got one price and non-members got other prices, and certain things were available to members, and trying to set that up on Shopify was actually really complicated. And you know, with the platform not being open in the same way, and it just with it being newer and there being less stuff done for it, you know, that can be. But if it's like, hey, you know, I have this one thing I made and I want to sell it, or I've got, you know, 3 products with no variations, and that sort of thing where they're sort of trying it out. They don't know if they're even going to, like, you know, keep up with it, carry on. That sort of thing, I think you can set up pretty easily. But you know, the fact that if you need to customize it, it will probably be harder than WordPress is a thing to take into consideration, and that is what our guest here was pointing out, that you have control over everything. And if you're already using WordPress, it's going to be a relatively familiar thing to work with.
Yeah. But the only thing is, as you were saying that, this is all, there's no true answer to this. But as you were saying that, I was thinking, you know, if you only got 3 products, why don't you just use the shopping cart from Squarespace? You know, why would you, you know, just use that? You know, I haven't used it, so you have. So John's put in a bit of a face for that, so maybe that wasn't a good idea.
There's no wrong answer, right?
All right, he's the person that tests all this, not me. So John Locke, I put this in the list, and I've just been really disappointed with the progress with WooCommerce in a way since Automatic took over it. But I'm only guessing this. I would imagine a lot of the resources that were going to go into WooCommerce were diverted. A lot of the engineering talent and hours was diverted to the Gutenberg project. So,
well, a lot of what's going on within WooCommerce is Gutenberg related right now.
Yeah. Do you think that there's an element of truth to that, or I'm just barking up the wrong tree, John Locke?
Yeah, really hard to say. You know, it seems like WooCommerce is still like one of their flagship sources of revenue, and that's probably why they
despite the fact that it's so hard to buy anything from the WooCommerce store.
Yeah, I don't like that part. I'll tell you what I think are the positive things. The positive things about WooCommerce is it is customizable, much more so than Shopify. And if you're on Magento, you need a
Oh.
really
Yeah, let's
skillful
just
developer.
not go there.
Oh,
Yeah.
you
So
brought
it is
a
like a
cold
lot.
sweat to me.
Yeah, but it's probably the right choice for most people, or but if you're just testing a product or testing an idea or a product line, Shopify is okay. I've seen like big stores that are on Shopify that look really good and seem to rank really well. But I was just reading here that Shopify, you have to be on their $2,000 a month plan to use Google Tag Manager. That seems like
Wow.
pretty wild.
Ouch.
That
Woo.
seems wild.
Woo.
Yeah.
Woo.
The one thing that I don't like about
These
WooCommerce,
Canadians know how to charge,
Yeah.
don't they? You know.
I'll tell you the one thing that I do not like about WooCommerce, probably the biggest negative to me, is like anytime you want to add any sort of functionality, you got to buy another plugin.
Yeah, it does
And
seem that way, doesn't it?
it is that way, and and I understand that that's their business model, and I understand that Shopify is growing because if you just have 5 products and you want to put them up on the store, it's easy to do and it's no pain. You don't have to worry about hosting, which is something that you do have to worry about with WooCommerce or Magento. The problem is like when you start to scale, like what do you choose? I mean, then it's a toss up between Shopify and WooCommerce. I still think it's probably the best choice for most places, just because you can adapt stuff most easily. I don't know about automatic, but I mean the WordPress, the open source, the WordPress org is still like a revenue vector for stuff like Jetpack and WooCommerce. So that's probably why it's not like its own hosted platform like Shopify is.
Right.
So, John Locke, I'm curious, when you were talking about a negative that you pretty much have to buy for any additional functionality, you need to tack on more and more plugins. To me, I almost see that as a benefit of WooCommerce, because if I just want to sell roses, like is what I'm doing in my
Right.
daughter's flower store, I don't want 7,000 additional functions that it could do to cover all other e-commerce opportunities, because that's going to add additional code, additional bloat, things you don't need to your website, and confuse people. So that's the point where I wish.
Yes, well, I think it's the issue is not so much needing a plugin as paying for the plugin.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'll tell you this.
For a lot of small clients.
For smaller clients. Now, I have a few clients on WooCommerce for sure. And like if you're doing like hundreds of thousands or upwards of $1 million or a few million per year, it's no big deal. But I think it's for the people who are just trying to get a product line going and they don't have that type of revenue yet, then there's like a lot of hesitation to add that stuff.
Yeah, once it starts making you money, paying for it is a no-brainer.
Yeah, then it's no biggie. Yeah,
I got to be honest. I understand where both of you coming from, but I think we have, anybody that's been in business, any other kind of brick and mortar business. I run a small chain of retail. Anybody involved in business in general, if you can't afford to set up a WooCommerce with a theme and have it customized a little bit and buy a few WooCommerce plugins without having, it's almost like being taken to the dentist. I think you've got a business plan which you haven't capitalized sufficiently, in my opinion. But I think there's a lot of people.
Well, basically, the IRS might be accusing you of having a hobby.
Yeah, but of course, there's a lot of people like that. But I think,
well, it's the promise of the internet, right? You can start a business for free and make money, and it's not exactly true, and it's not exactly untrue.
it's in that fuzzy area, isn't it?
Yes, but generally, a business does require some level of investment. Even if, I was terribly naive when I first got into the internet. I was, it was 1994, and I was publishing an online academic journal. And it was like, well, we don't have to pay for printing, so it's free, right? And it's like, yeah, and who's like putting a whole bunch of unpaid hours into this as a result? Or
To
where
bring
is
memories back, I was doing my university course as a mature student, and they were teaching us multimedia using Director from Macromedia.
oh
that,
yes.
that brings back memories. And Flash. I got in as a freelancer, John. As I got to tell you, as the Walking Devils, I was a Flash developer. I was the person that developed all those intros to your
All
website.
those splash pages.
Yes, that's how I got
Nice.
mine. Lovely, wasn't it? I was very creative. I made the people wait at least 2 minutes before they could actually get to the website. There we go.
That's all right. It was all on dial-up anyway.
Exactly. Exactly. They were the days. You could be creative then. I was big into the Japanese Flash designer developers. They did some fantastic work. So there you go. On to the next story. How to get more traffic with Google Web Stories and WordPress. This is another one for you, John Locke. So this is why I wanted you on this week. Also a former regular, Adam from WP Crafter, he did a piece on this. Is it just a load of these web stories? There's been a lot of stuff on the SEO community about this, isn't there? Is it just a load
Well,
of?
it's like every social platform wants to have stories now.
Yeah,
they want
yeah.
stories.
Everybody copied Instagram. Well, yeah, Instagram copied.
I mean, I've been
Snapchat.
using Instagram for a year, and I haven't figured out what a story is yet.
I don't think they
basically-
have either.
Yeah, it's basically just a chain of different things, and the way that I understand this is basically, I haven't played around with these like too much, but apparently you can get these to rank too, but it's similar to Instagram or Snapchat stories, where it's like a series of different visuals and text, and they kind of limit like how much text there is there for each thing, but short attention span, a world where these type of pieces of content that are on social media seem to be popular. So sometimes these rank, but I haven't messed around with these too much. So
Well, and it's also, it talks about getting more traffic, and I think that's true of a lot of social things. It's not so much your ranking as that it can bring people to look at your website. And I mean the web stories, the Google Web Stories sound like, they're potentially interesting. And I'm probably, given what I focus on, not going to run out and spend a lot of time figuring them out, because I'm going to be too busy keeping up with the theme changes in WordPress and Gutenberg.
Oh, it's so much simpler when you're using Animator, Sally. It's just. So, John, obviously in a very competitive and increasingly competitive online environment, people look at these stories and these particular things that come out from Google, and they are going to be over it like over it. I was looking at
like white on rice.
Yes, I was going to actually say something a bit more dirtier, but
that's why
I like white on rice. That was a good choice.
Yeah, that was.
Thank you, Sally. You saved us.
Yes.
We all know what you're going to say.
Yeah. Is that what this is all about, John? It's just the natural, when something comes out from a major like Google, people are going to be all over it. But
yeah, I think it's a news story. It's them trying something new. It's them taking they're seeing something that works for a different platform, so they're giving it a shot. I think
of
the
course,
idea about
yes.
stories.
What is that? None of us copy our competitors. Testimony. No. We would never threaten to duplicate the function of a company that we were trying to buy.
But anyways, I feel that this is like a move towards that more instant gratification, where stories and all this. I think wasn't the original idea behind the story that it would be there for 24 hours and it's like gone forever.
Yeah,
which for me is something I I think that was like where it started, and I think they're trying to get it to where they last a little bit longer. But I feel like what we do focus on more is on SEO and on creating things that are searchable, and they're a bit more evergreen, where the value is there months after production. And these stories are just not really with my mindset. There's nothing I really want to spend a lot of time on, because it takes patience to get results from search engines, but those results can last for a long time, which is way more what I want to build my business.
Right. And the this sort of thing, I mean, Instagram as a platform generally, and then the story type format that everyone is using encourages really bad accessibility practices, because it's all like, you look at Instagram and there's all these like words contained in your image so that people can read them on Instagram. Well, like, there's a lot of people who can't read those words because they're in the image. And so, the lasting SEO value or meaning is kind of contrary. So, entertaining, but very ephemeral. And if your content is not ephemeral, maybe not so well suited.
I'm going to drop story 6 if you don't mind, Sally. I know it's.
I was putting that in more as a recommendation than as a story. So.
All right, fair enough. Because I don't want this dragging on. Because last week's we had quite a large panel, John, last week, and it went on for about.
It's like, oops, we're 15 minutes over.
It went on for an hour and 20 minutes, the bloody thing. So I like to keep it to an hour, John. So let's go to this week's panel recommendation. Now, merging WordPress databases, especially if you've got a membership site or WooCommerce or anything where you've got people buying almost every day, and then you're upgrading it or you're doing a redesign or whatever, and trying to keep the databases synced has always been a bit of a weakness of WordPress. And there's a really good article on Delicious Brain, actually. They write some great technical pieces.
Well, they spent a long time trying to build a product to do this and gave up.
They did, and that the only thing I found that kind of works, but the reason I'm quantifying it is that you need to be wary, but the only product that seems to do the job to some extent, and they're in partnership with Liquid Web, so it can't be that bad, is and I have used it and it has worked, but I say to you, look at it and make a judgment call, is a product called WP Merge.
Backup.
Yes, backup. WP Merge. And it's not the cheapest, but on the other hand, this is a serious problem, because otherwise
costly problem, yeah.
You're going to have to go into tables manually, and you're going to have to start deleting, uploading manually on a live website, and that can turn your hair. My hair is I dye my hair because I just want to keep myself looking young, and try and look as handsome as John C. This is the only thing I've found on the market that stands any chance of working. So, John Locke, have you got something you want to recommend to the listeners and viewers?
Yes, I'm going to recommend, this is a guy that I started following on Twitter a little while ago. His name's Victor Pan. And every Friday he does threads on SEO. And I know that most people, they follow kind of the same people, like, Rand Fishkin, Neil Patel, Brian Dean, maybe a couple other guys.
I don't actually follow them because I think they're so up in the food chain.
Yeah, I like to follow people who are actively doing like client SEO and not so much trying to sell courses or stuff like that on SEO. And this guy really has he has like different perspectives, and he has some really thoughtful threads. Every Friday he drops a thread, but even the other 6 days of the week there's a lot of stuff that really makes you think about things differently. And I like getting those different perspectives. So.
Yeah, put your recommendations in chat panel. But also I know John Locke's got a great YouTube channel where he's got hundreds of videos about SEO, and he's in doing it for clients. So go over also to John's YouTube channel. Right? Sally, have you got something you want to recommend?
Yes, and I confess I haven't tried this, but I liked the idea of it so much. Stackable, which produces a block library plugin for Gutenberg, has added to it its role manager for Gutenberg, so that you can set on all of your blocks whether you want the, which level of user you want to be able to change everything, only edit the content in the blocks, etc. And I know that that there are tools like this for other page builders, so that there's a limit to what your clients can break in the design. Interestingly, in the same week, we got the news that Facebook is bringing back GeoCities.
I got to interrupt. I had a client that spent a fair bit of money with us at the beginning of the year. And it was quite a big website, and he's a very forceful individual, been very successful, but very forceful. And we did some pre-design work with him and did some mock-ups, and then the day the site goes live and you hand it over to him, and he insisted that he wanted full control of it. And then over the next weeks, you saw him demolish the site. We were still working on him on other aspects like SEO and email marketing. And he kept saying to me, "God, have you seen my latest improvements?" And I had to just keep a blank face. And every page he demolished. It's not something that I would want in my portfolio now. And I've been doing this for a few years now, and you think you would get hardened to it, and you do to a certain degree, but it's still painful to see, really, because it is your baby, and you have put some of your commitment to it to try and get the best for the client, and they just don't see it. They just go straight.
And technically it's their website.
It's their website.
If they want to do that, they can, but it just seems like such a shame that, they paid you money and you put effort into it, and
they just demolish it. And they honestly don't see it. He actually sees himself as a quasi graphic designer. And
yes, those are often the dangerous ones.
Yes. John, got anything you wanted to recommend to the listeners and viewers?
Well, as far as a tool that I've been using a lot recently and I really like, creating lead magnets is one of those things that if you're trying to build your email list to eventually be able to sell and do things like that, creating a pretty nice looking lead magnet, it requires some design chops to make people actually want it. And a tool I've been using to turn meaty blog posts into little ebooks that they can download and read on their own. It's worked really, really well. It's called Beacon. I'll put the link down wherever we're doing links.
Can you put it into chat?
Yeah, I'll put it into the chat here. And it's just a fantastic little tool where you can create checklists, create ebooks, create resource guides, create video lookbooks, and do it in just a few moments. And it integrates into your email providers, and you can put into your blog posts like that. So if you're a content creator, I think it's a pretty efficient way of creating well-designed content if you're not a designer.
Is that a free paid thing, or is that
here? It has a beginner, a free forever plan, but then it has relatively affordable plans depending on what level makes sense for you.
Well, have a look at that. It's really interesting.
One.
Thanks for that, John.
Sure.
Right, I think we're coming to close. I just want to say that I'm doing a webinar. You will be listening to this on Monday, so it's worthwhile. On the Tuesday, I will be doing a webinar with one of our regular panel members, Chris Badgett, CEO of LifterLMS. I will be doing a webinar. I expect all the panel to be there as well. No, I don't. I think you've got better things to do. But me and Chris we will be showing how you can use the core of Lifter, which is totally free, with an add-on, a $99 add-on to take Stripe payment. We will be showing you how you can build out the framework of a whole membership site in less than an hour. So we're going to be hammering away. I'm going to be interrupting Chris, so he gets even more panicked about trying to do this in an hour, but he's used to my sarcasm and my hindrance.
Chris is inured to us, yes.
And he can deal with me. He's an experienced, successful CEO, so he just brushes me away anyway. So
and
I
he's
will
such
be
a
there.
mellow guy.
He is. It's very odd. He laughs at my jokes, though. So my English. Sally, John. Sally lived in England for 4 to 6 years, so she understands the English humour, don't you? To some degree, don't you, Sally?
Yes, it was interesting. I was listening to hallway chats the other day, and Liam said crikey, and I'm like, who taught him that word?
Crikey. So we will be doing this on Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you want to see me hindering Chris, you can go to the WP-Tonic website. In the top navigation, there's a button that says free webinar. Click it, do a quick sign up, and you will also be able to ask any LifterLMS question at the end of the webinar to Chris live. So it's a great opportunity if you've got any questions as well. So, John, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to?
Absolutely, yeah. So I put out the most content on my YouTube channel. You can just go to YouTube and search for Income Mesh. It's a silly name, but it's what I came up with years ago. And I also have a blog over at incomemesh.com, and put out free content as frequently as I can, helping people learn and master the different digital marketing tools to create sales funnels online.
Has it been an ongoing debate with you to name it John Whitford or call it a company name? Is it something you've been oscillating about at all?
I wanted to buy johnwhitford.com, but some guy started some communications company before I bought the domain, and so that domain is not available. But it's an ongoing debate, but ultimately domain ranking is more important than what I want
for the YouTube
the
channel. I mean, actually for the YouTube channel.
Oh, going the personal branding route? It's something I think about, but I spend more time on the content than on the name of the channel itself. I haven't really floated it too much to really decide if it makes sense, but also my last name can be misspelled quite easily, so either way it's hard to spell.
Mine.
Right.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, that's a tricky one.
Yes, but let me tell you, nobody else had my name as a domain.
Got to snatch it up.
Oh yeah, no, it's my parents did not know it, but they named me wonderfully for Google.
I got mine, Donkey. I haven't used it, jonathandenwood.com. I haven't used it at all, but I have it. I got it about 15 years ago, and I've kept it just in case I wanted to use it, and I found somebody had snatched it. John Locke, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to, John?
Well, not at johnlocke.com, because apparently that domain is like $30,000 to buy.
Yeah,
I just can't see ponying that up. But
No.
you can find me at my first at my website, which is lockdownseo.com. I post stuff on the blog all the time there, and you can go to my YouTube channel. I post even more often over there, several times per week. Just search for John Locke SEO or Lockdown SEO on YouTube, and you'll find it.
Sally, how can people find? I can't talk. Sorry, listeners and viewers. Sally, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to?
Yes, I am at Sally Getch on Twitter and on Instagram, and my website is wpfangirl.com. And if you go to meetup.com and look for East Bay WordPress Meetup, you will find the meetup. And since we are currently meeting via Zoom, you don't have to live in the area to attend. We meet usually the third Sunday in August. It's going to be the first Sunday and the fourth Sunday at 1 in the afternoon Pacific time.
Right, and just to wrap up, if you really want to support the show and you enjoy the roundtable, basically go to iTunes and give us a review. It really does help the show. It only takes you a couple of minutes, and it makes a big difference to the ranking of the show. And the more listeners we get, the better guests, the more entertainment we can supply to you. We'll be back next week with another great panel. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.